So I was streaming a few days ago and ended up turning into one of the greatest new Pokemon brainstorms of all time. Shonji was in the chat, and we all know him. He's actually been on Fan Fridays before. He's a very cool fan in the comment section of videos a lot, and he ended up leaving some Twitch chat messages. And what he ended up saying was, what if we had a new Pokemon that explained all of the items that we find on the ground? And this immediately made me think Magpie Pokemon, something on the lines like that. And then I thought of this Fakemon right here, because this is one of the coolest Fakemon designs I've ever seen. This is a Pokemon that I've wanted to be real more than any other Pokemon designs I've seen, because I think it just looks really cool. Everything about the design is just right on it. I feel that you could actually build up the lore to this Pokemon, or you can make something about it just feel right and have it be just a really awesome Pokemon. Then that went back to the item explanation, and bringing the whole Pokemon world together, as in explaining just the little things, is something that has become more common throughout the years. Like in the early days of Pokemon, it seems like they didn't care. If there was a loose end, they left it as a loose end. But as it's gotten more and more, you know, things start to explain themselves a little better. And we've also kind of seen interactions with like wild items as well, with something like Fungus and Voltorb, that while they are Pokemon disguised items, it just kind of shows that, hey, these aren't always free. They can be deceptive, or there are just kind of things that are around. But a Magpie Pokemon would explain that more than anything. And I was also looking into some other design ideas, like what if it was kind of like Delibird, that it had a sack of items, and like that's where it stored what it stole. So it wouldn't be exactly like this kind of design that we see, but it would have other little quirks to it that would make it work out pretty well. So yeah, like he's just kind of flying around and the items fall out of his stored pouch and then apparently just drop on the ground for you to pick up. Or maybe we can actually see the interactions, like it's just kind of leaving them around as gifts. Maybe there's also like that Delibird side to it where it could either be a present or just a bad item or something like that, and then it's like, oh no, it was a trap, and then the Pokemon busts out and attacks you from like a bush or something. I wouldn't put it past that guy. So the idea behind the whole Magpie Pokemon is that magpies have this infamous reputation for stealing shiny objects, and we get a lot of interactions with that. Now, don't be a smart aleck, because I know someone's going to go and pull up this news article that's like, magpies don't really steal shiny objects, because that's something that's come out in recent years, is that magpies aren't really like these thieves. But back when we go into European lore and stuff, they actually have a very bad reputation for doing that, and it carries over into many different games. That when it even comes down to Magic the Gathering, there's a card Thieving Magpie that whenever you deal damage to an opponent, you draw a card, because it kind of resembles some kind of gain mechanic off of harming your opponent. And even in RuneScape, there's a Magpie summon in RuneScape, and I would know this because I actually have a decent enough summoning level to get this guy, and it actually works out pretty well that whenever you use its ability, it gives you a thieving level to kind of show the sticky claws of a magpie, but also it has the foraging passive. So it's attracted to shiny objects, and it will give you rings and jewelry and stuff randomly. So magpies, when it comes to the world of gaming and fantasy, they're thieves, and we can still have that work out for Pokemon, so don't let that news article get in the way of this. So I was thinking, yeah, you could have like some kind of design alteration where it's a pouch, maybe even the pickup ability. So you get them in the early routes, you have pickup, that really, like a Magpie Pokemon with pickup. How has Game Freak not done this yet? And the design could be really cool, and then when it evolves, it becomes something useful. So you could have this guy chill with you for the early times, and then it can be kind of like Murkrow and a Honchkrow. That maybe it could also have like the Prankster ability if you want to do some silly things with the first stages of the bird Pokemon, and then it can still evolve and be competitively useful. So that's one of my favorite things about Pokemon, is that sometimes you can catch a Pokemon in the wild that's good for one thing, and then it helps you on through your adventure, and then you actually discover its true competitive power. Now, I do already know when it comes to Pokemon Sun and Moon, we have that bird teaser, and it doesn't look like a magpie. It looks more like a woodpecker or some kind of red-crested cardinal, if we're going with that Hawaii theory. But we've actually seen generations where there are multiple birds. That's actually very common, so we can maybe have an extra line like this that works out. I mean, like, yeah, Murkrow came out in the same time as Hoothoot and Noctowl, so we can hopefully get some more cool bird Pokemon flying around. I want to see something like this and work out. So yeah, Magpie Pokemon has all these items at its disposal, and now it would actually start explaining little bits of the overworld. I think that that's one of the coolest designs I've ever heard for a Pokemon, and something I want more than ever. Also, when it comes to just the whole concept of this. Like, the first time you probably saw this was on a special countdown video where it was said to be real and then wasn't, because fakes are good like that. So actually I went and tracked down where the official source is, because like one of the things is, I've seen this all over the place, but it's normally like on Pinterest, it's on some kind of fake Pokemon thread, but here's the real thing, and you can find the real link in the description below if you want the official source of it. It is a Japanese artist, and it was pretty hard to find. So overall, I think it's a really cool concept. Tell me in the comments what other concepts you want to see. I'm not talking about like Pokemon designs. You know, I've already done my top 10 Pokemon designs where it's talking about like wolves and platypus and stuff like that. Is it platypi? I don't know. But we're talking about other things, and now this is actually the concept. This is a lore concept that relates to something incredibly well in the real world that should have already been in Pokemon, that can come together through design, concept, and potentially even battle, because it can evolve into something competitive, and then it helps explain things in Pokemon. Why are there just items on the ground? Okay, sure, maybe trainers drop them or something, but you know, it'd be cooler if Pokemon are flying around and they're stealing from people, and then they accidentally fumble it around, and then it turns out to be yours. And you can find that out as you go along. Like, you talk to a random NPC, and it's like, oh, did you hear about that magpie Pokemon? I heard it steals items, but sometimes it drops them, so keep your eyes out for wild items on the ground. Boom! Look at that! That would be so true to old school Pokemon, just like kind of explaining it in a really fancy way that relates only to the Pokemon world. Now, I think the only other concept that I've talked about, especially in my Pokemon top 10, was the stork Pokemon. That if we look at what we need for a concept for a Pokemon, I guess it's answering just mundane questions and stuff. You know, where do babies come from? Where do Pokemon babies come from? Since the daycare owners don't know, maybe we could just kind of flesh that one out and be like, oh yeah, by the way, I saw a stork Pokemon here, magical things happen, because you're still an innocent child kind of idea. But then we might get some baggage overlap, because alright, how is it going to carry an egg in if it's a stork Pokemon? Or maybe just some kind of Pokemon egg giving Pokemon, even though stork makes the most sense and would probably be really cool. Also, it's flying, so these ideas overlap, and actually thinking about it, I think I want a magpie Pokemon even more. But if you are going to be commenting down below on the comments that you want to see, I do read every comment. Just think about questions that need to be answered, even if they're like silly questions. I mean, this whole amazing concept started with, how do those Pokemon items get there? And I imagine that many times in your Pokemon journeys through the game, you just have one of those little questions like, how does that happen? Why is this the way that it is? And I guess the new idea is, hey, there's a Pokemon for that. So hopefully it isn't done too poorly like a trash bag Pokemon or something like that, but maybe we'll actually get into some really sick concepts that could play out. I mean, Digimon might be a little bit of inspiration. I did use that a couple of times in my Pokemon top 10. We're getting really close, guys. We are getting really close. At the time of this making this video, it's 1 week until we get the new CoroCoro news, where we're expecting like new Pokemon, probably the starters, the legendaries, the box art. Hopefully it doesn't let us down, and if you are from the future, you will know how that CoroCoro went. But we're about to get, it's going to be like the X and Y hype all over again. Now we're going to be seeing new Pokemon. We're going to be getting glimpses as to what this region is, glimpses as to what the 7th generation is supposed to be. And I want a lot of really cool things. I think Pokemon X and Y nailed it. Absolutely crushed it for design and concept. And I really want to see that again, because it makes for a very good experience. Also, I do have to mention, no Zygarde when it comes to unanswered questions, like what about Zygarde's forms and stuff. We are either getting that in a very future game, like down the road after Pokemon Sun and Moon, or that we already have it. That with the Pokemon XYZ anime, that's looking to answer all of the questions and not mess it up with the game. And then we don't need a game for anything Zygarde related. So that's already covered, guys. Don't worry about those questions. Really, we're just looking into unanswered Pokemon concepts to where we can go, hey, I wonder if, or something like that. Actually, that, you know how there's an app for that? Let's change it to, is there a Pokemon for that? That's the new catchphrase, hopefully, of this generation, if we can start. I really want to have more than like 1.5 concepts on this video, because there's really just a lot of elaboration on the Magpie Pokemon, and then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, Stork might get in the way of it. I'm trying to think of something else, but I'm just having a huge mental block. But fortunately, I just hit 2,000 or 200,000 subscribers. By the way, thank you guys for that. I haven't really done a huge celebration on the 200K because I feel like 250K is a bigger milestone, so I just kind of did a little bit of a hype stream for that. So maybe someone out there has another killer idea, like Shonji. He just showed up. He was like, oh, by the way, you know, this is something that I want to see, and then boom, we started like making those real world connections, and then it just grew into something crazy. And I mean, there's also the potential for unused type combinations that could play into a really nice new Pokemon concept. So I think concept over design, then design over anything else, and hopefully we get an amazing generation out of the 7th generation for Pokemon Sun and Moon. So leave a comment. I read all the comments in all my videos, and yours might be a really awesome one that will find its way into a video someday. So if you guys enjoyed this video, I am super hyped for Pokemon Sun and Moon. I hope you guys are just a little more hyped with this video as well. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.